This is Office Hours,
a show for sharing experiences and stories in governance, risk management, and compliance. All right, Kevin, this time we're going to talk about marketing.
And in typical Office Hour fashion, Dan has told me nothing about what he's going to show today.
So I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never seen a risk management program that ever considered or comprehended. Certainly there's risk management that looks at potential reputational risk. If we do something bad and end up on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, there's a real problem. So how do we manage against that? But one thing I've never seen a risk management program look at is the risk of brand misperception.
Huh, why do you think they've never looked at that?
Because we don't do an especially good job of tying risk management directly to the strategy and core initiatives of our organizations. And brand really matters. And not just the quality of our brand and has it been damaged, but what is it perceived as? Similarly, I've worked with an awful lot of internal audit departments, and I've never seen an audit done. Frankly, I've never seen an audit done that was a marketing focus. Like, you might see, certainly we have a lot of auditors running around right now trying to do audits of GDPR and compliance issues and that sort of thing. But I've never seen them audit the operation that is marketing.
Sure. And I guess being someone who marketing now sits under and a former auditor, you would be a subject matter expert in both.
I'm not sure if I'm a subject matter expert in both, but I can't seem to take off my risk manager hat when thinking about marketing. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to talk about a project I just recently was involved in to evaluate how was the organization speaking about its brand, and how was its brand being perceived in the market? Because most of us just assume that as a marketing function or as a company more broadly, that we are actually being perceived the way we want to be. When in reality, we misperceive brands all the time.
Right. So you can test assumptions about the brand and actually prove out what we think internally.
Right. So how can we evaluate the conversations going on in the market? Or more importantly, when we think about marketing execution, how can we evaluate the mass of our marketing message going out to evaluate, are we actually speaking about the things that are core to our strategy? So if I was a large manufacturer of glasses and I make beer glasses, but we just added wine glasses to our line of products, sure, we think it's exciting, we do a big product launch, but is marketing really telling the world that we also now sell wine glasses? And what mix of our total marketing effort is that? And is it coming across clearly, or are we inventing a bunch of buzzwords that are obscuring the underlying message?
Sure. So I don't know what you're going to show, but I'm assuming you not only want to test the message that you're sending out to the market, but you also want to look at what is the perception coming back from
and
the people that you're marketing
More importantly, when we look at that let's benchmark compared to our competitors, or who we know are our competitors, and actually look at, are we as good as we think we are? How much of the voice around wine glasses in the market are we versus everybody else who produces wine glasses? So that's the project we took on. Now, I think you and I both agree, we're perhaps biased given that we work for ACL, but I think we both agree that risk management programs that aren't driven by data are just guesses. And just like our marketing message is just guesses without data. So when I think about that, I think the best place where I could actually find structured data that is consistent between the data that represents my organization and represents my competitors' organizations, from a marketing perspective, the one place where we all communicate, where that data format is consistent, is on Twitter.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the good thing about Twitter is everybody's tweets come in the same format. And this analysis that I'm going to show makes the assumption that basically our corporate, in any one of our organizations, our corporate Twitter feed is generally representative of how we speak broadly in the market and with how much and what concentration we're sending out each message. Does that make sense?
The other nice thing about Twitter is the character cap. And so you have to be concise about the message you're sending out. And so I imagine, I'm not a Twitter marketing expert, but I imagine you want to put in as much of the words that are going to hit the market as possible into your 144 characters.
That's right. One of the things we've added in a relatively recent version of ACL Analytics, this is our core analytics tool, and this is where you connect to underlying data sources. There's a Twitter connector now built in to ACL Analytics. And so that's where you can see it listed in amongst all of the different connectors. I'm just going to show you, I've already set up my connection with all of the authentication tokens that are necessary to connect. In order to do this, you do need to sign up on apps.twitter.com, basically as a developer, even though you're not really going to be doing any Twitter development, in order to get API access tokens from Twitter. They're on this tab right here. I'm not going to click over and show you all of my access tokens.
Yeah, and that basically gives ACL Analytics access to your Twitter feed.
That's right. So that way then when I make the connection now, just like as if Twitter were a database, you will see tables available in ACL that are the tweets, the users, etc., that you can then pull down into ACL. Now, this takes a few minutes to do because, of course, it's all cloud access, so it depends on the speed of my internet connection and everything else. But here's where you'll see all the different information you can pull from Twitter, mentions, retweets, etc., etc. I'm going to spare you going through all of that here. There's full document. If you are an ACL user, of course, there's full documentation on how to do that. But suffice it to say, I'll pull down a full table of tweets into my analytics tool that are all the tweets. So right here, what you're actually looking at is a table of those tweets that are from, in this case, our corporate Twitter feed, as well as all of my competitors' corporate Twitter feed accounts, as well as any of those tweets if they got retweeted or if the corporate account was referenced by somebody else. So now I have a whole bunch of data that I can begin to analyze for what are we actually saying in the market. But that's where it becomes complicated, right? Because we all know analyzing these bodies of text like that is more difficult than analyzing your typical table of payments or payroll or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I can't do a simple filter on that.
That's right. So I'm not going to go into great detail here, but I did a couple of things because I wanted to try two different things. There's lots going on in the world today on text analytics and analyzing blocks of text. We did the Twitter data extraction, normalized it, and cleaned it up all on ACL. ACL is fantastic for doing that. It'll let you, by the way, the Twitter API will let you pull like 3,700 tweets per account out, so you can go back a pretty long way on each organization. Now, one of the things that's going on that's really interesting, I get asked all the time about AI and machine learning. Are you using it? Da-da-da-da-da. Lots of people talking about it, not many people using it in practical ways. I went to use it in a practical way here. So I take each one of those tweets and send it through a natural language processing powered by machine learning service provided in this case by Amazon. So Amazon Web Services provides a service called Amazon Comprehend. I use ACL and the execute command to run a script that pushes each tweet into the Amazon Comprehend engine, and it sends back, here are the key topics within this tweet. So each tweet I get back anywhere from 2 to 7 key topics that the natural language AI machine basically identifies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So then I said, you know what, here actually are the key topics our corporate strategy says we're focused on. Wine glasses, beer glasses, right down the line, right?
Right.
And I think about what are those core phrases that are a part of our brand strategy. And then ACL's got some fantastic abilities to do fuzzy matching. And so basically I use ACL Analytics to match the topics that came back from the AI engine with the topics in my core business strategy. And the way I like to personally do that for the super data nerds, if you already are an ACL user, is using something called dice coefficient. Now, we're getting a bit nerdy here, but suffice it to say that's a way to compare two strings like these topics and get a quantified figure back between 0 and 100% basically of how similar are these two topics.
Right.
So now I can see all of the roughly matching topics. So I basically know how much information am I marketing, how much information am I putting into the world that's on message versus off message. And more importantly, within each of those key topic areas, I know how much I'm putting into the world versus my competitors. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what that ultimately ends up looking like, definitely reach out if you'd like some more details on the nuts and bolts of doing that, because I'll spare the video a technical walkthrough of dice coefficient.
So we're not going to watch you script today?
Lucky for you. And sorry, we have to blur out the actual vendors you see here, because this is some real data that I can't unfortunately disclose. But you can see for each vendor or each Twitter user, how many total tweets they've sent out, what's their share of the total tweets put into the market amongst these competitors, and then I've analyzed how many on each topic and the share of conversation in each topic. So this is basically a crosstab of the outcome of all of that, so that I have a summarized view of topic by topic, what share of the conversation and what share of the marketing does each vendor have. Make sense?
Yep. I know you can't share the exact details, but after you analyze the data, I'm curious, was there anything that surprised you or that you didn't expect?
Yeah, and I think the key to being able to really see that is that table of information is interesting to me as a data nerd, but I want a way to really be able to see that clearly.
Right.
And so that's where data visualization comes in. So attached on top of that, I could have used any data visualization tool, but in our case, again, the tools I use are ACL, so we published this into ACL GRC, our GRC platform, published it into our results module, and now I've created basically a heat map visualization that shows down the left side each of those core topic areas. So these ones happen to be topic areas that, unshockingly, a GRC vendor might care about. And along the bottom, each of the competitors in the market. Now, in this particular heat map, across each row for this topic, security in this case, I can see this row adds up to 100%. And this vendor is taking up, out of 40 vendors, this particular vendor is taking up 20% of the marketing airtime in the market. They're kicking ass, right? So
they're really focused on that area, and you can clearly see maybe the yellows are kind of medium, and then everyone else is not really talking about it much.
But that might be intentional or unintentional. What if our strategy was we're expanding from security into regulatory compliance, but somewhere along the line in the organization, marketing didn't get the message, or marketing doesn't understand the message. And so they're pumping information out into the market about security that we've always done, but not really talking about regulatory compliance. And yet we're surprised.
Talking about it the wrong way.
Exactly. And so why would we be surprised if we're not performing as well as we would like selling into that new market? And that to me is risk management. It's about managing. That's real risk. Misunderstanding complex enterprise markets is real risk. So how do we manage that risk to help the organization perform more reliably by bringing to light something like this?
Yeah, so what would be the next steps in this? If you're a risk manager, you gain this insight and you find that marketing is off topic on where they should be focused according to strategy.
Exactly. So I think that's where you come back to here, and even as interesting as this analysis is, this is where most risk managers or auditors or whoever, marketers frankly, are gonna miss an opportunity as we get to that heat map. We publish the report, we show it off to management, and boy, don't we look cool and drop it there. But of course, as we've talked about in other episodes of Office Hours, what I would suggest is everything we did there is now repeatable. And it's all scripted, and it can run every single day, every single hour, however important we think it is. So get that scheduled in real time, keep that heat map alive and living all the time. And now, more importantly, put the risk indicators and the workflow around it to say, hey, when we're only talking about regulatory compliance 1% of the time, let's notify marketing, notify marketing management, put some workflow around that so that we know that they are shifting the mix in our MarCom. And strikingly, even though we never talk about it in an area like marketing where we do like security, that's called a control. And controls make companies operate better. And that would be my argument for applying risk management to something like brand perception and our marketing communications mix.
Yeah, now actually with that too, you could set some real targets for improving. So we want to move into the wine glass business. We want to set a target around how much of the conversation, and then you can track that in real time.
Absolutely.
And maybe you'll even see if you start carrying that conversation, maybe you see a reaction back from the rest of the market trying to take it back, and then you can react to that as well.
So there you go. Risk managers, go attack your marketing department. See you next time, Kev.
See you next time.